AI is stealing from you. And I don't just mean all the copyrighted works and movies and books and art and blog posts and code and every other piece of content that humans have created. They're stealing from you, the person watching this video. And what I'm really talking about is the fact that when you use AI instead of sitting with the problem or doing things manually the old way, you're losing opportunities. AI is stealing your opportunities to learn. It's stealing your opportunities to think and synthesize information as well as form your own opinions. It's stealing your opportunities to develop determination and sit in discomfort while learning and working. And it's also stealing the development and nurturing of your problem solving or critical thinking skills. And when you use AI for instant answers, it's robbing you from every opportunity to develop your brain's ability to do those things. Now, I am going to rant a bit, but I'm also going to back this up with some research because it's not just me that's saying this. There was a 2025 study called Generative AI Without Guardrails Can Harm Learning, Evidence from High School Mathematics. And in that study, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania gave nearly 1,000 students access to GPT-4 for math practice. There were 3 groups. In one group, students could use no AI at all, and in the other 2 groups could use AI. But there were 2 versions of it. There was one version that had no guardrails and basically would just give them the answers if they asked for it. And the second version was a tutor version that wouldn't give people the direct answer. It would kind of guide them to look it up and solve it on their own. And what they found is that for the students that used AI without the guardrails, their scores initially went up 48% compared to the group with no AI. But then when researchers took that AI away for the exam, the students using AI with no guardrails scored 17% worse than the group that had no AI at all. The moment the AI was taken away, the advantage went with it. Now, really my core argument here is that every time AI instantly solves a problem for you, when it finds an answer or creates a summary for you, it removes part of the process that helps you grow. And that convenience comes at a cost. You have fewer opportunities to think, fewer opportunities to learn, fewer opportunities to struggle. And the key thing here is that just because some learning feels good in the moment doesn't mean any of it is actually sticking. And that's not just theory. In the math study that we just talked about, the kids who scored worse and used AI didn't even feel like they'd scored worse. They thought they were learning just fine. So when you get those instant answers, you feel like you're moving forward, but you're not actually retaining anything, and you didn't actually get to sit with that information. So you're not going to be able to recall it yourself in the future. You're essentially creating a situation where you'll be entirely dependent on AI. And that's the other thing to think about, right? Our access to AI is probably the cheapest it's ever going to be, and it's not something that everyone's always going to have access to. So if you're not practicing those skills now, the moment you no longer have access to AI, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to have blank screen syndrome. You're basically going to be a zombie. And so this is why I think you should invest in and take the time to slow down and not use AI for everything. Because those skills that you develop without AI are very hard to develop while using AI. Now let's dig deeper into what exactly AI is stealing. We already talked about how AI is stealing your ability to learn and retain information, but it's also stealing your ability to think and synthesize information. And so the simple act of reading, comparing sources, forming opinions, and summarizing information are all acquired skills. Right now, it's just so easy to ask AI to summarize an article for you or ask it to extract out the main points. But you're missing that entire opportunity to do it yourself and form those skills yourself. And you might say, oh, big deal. We're going to have access to AI all the time anyways. But I really want you to analyze that perspective. You're essentially saying that your ability to critically think and do your work or do your schoolwork or do your job is now directly tied to an AI subscription owned by a corporation. And so what you're telling me is AI can do everything for me, so I'm just going to be infinitely subscribed to this AI corporation for the rest of my life. And personally, I don't want that. And I don't want to see a future where that's the case. And the other aspect of this is synthesizing information and forming your own opinions. That is a skill. And if you're asking AI to do it for you all the time, you're just adopting AI's interpretation instead of developing your own. And when you're adopting AI's interpretation, you're actually adopting the interpretation of the people that trained the AI, the corporation, the people that own the model and slurped up all the data from the internet to train it on and selectively choose which of those things would be trained on and selectively choose how it would be fine-tuned to answer in certain ways. So again, you can tell me, oh, I'm going to be able to do this and I will have access to this tool for the rest of my life. So why should I spend my time actually learning these skills? But you also need to realize that you're basically tying your ability to synthesize information and form your own opinions to a corporation, a literal money-making capitalist entity. And that means going forward, all of your opinions will be completely informed by them as well. Now, the next thing AI is stealing from you is the ability to sit with discomfort. Not knowing something is uncomfortable, but staying with that discomfort is what actually builds patience and curiosity. And we know this from a very young age, right? Kids are running around saying, I'm bored. But good parents will let their kids sit in that boredom and figure out what to do with it. They explore their curiosities. They get interested in building things with Legos or learning about electronics or doing art or making up stories. But all of these things that children spend their time on result in better critical thinking skills and better ways to just sit with themselves and this discomfort that is existence. And when you immediately get answers back from an AI, you're completely robbed of that opportunity to sit with the discomfort. And then again, over time, you'll reach a point where you're not even capable of functioning without that immediate guidance from AI. And so I'm back to my previous point. You're basically going to become a puppet for the owner of the AI model. And anytime you feel like some task is bringing you discomfort, you'll immediately reach for the AI baby bottle instead. Now, the last thing AI is stealing from you is determination and problem solving. Solving difficult problems requires persistence, experimentation, and recovery from failure. Not everything happens instantly, and you only develop those abilities through deliberate practice. And so if AI is handling every single difficult step for you, you're not building those skills to be able to handle those things on your own. Now, there was a study from 2014 called Productive Failure in Learning Math by Manu Kapur. And for this study, they had 2 randomized controlled trials with high school students learning math. One group was taught the concept by a teacher first, and then solved problems after, and this is known as direct instruction. And the other group attempted to solve the problems first, failed, and then they received instruction after struggling with the problems. And the key finding was that both groups achieved the same level of procedural knowledge, but the students who struggled and failed first developed significantly greater conceptual understanding and ability to transfer to novel problems. And the number of different solution attempts students generated during the failure phase predicted their learning outcomes. So the students who struggled didn't just learn different things. They generated their own representations and solutions, even wrong ones, and those wrong attempts activated prior knowledge and created mental structures that made the eventual instruction from a teacher land more deeply. And so the failure itself was the preparation. And that's kind of the other thing that I'm getting at here is that AI is literally stealing the ability for you to develop your brain. The way that we learn and the way that we move throughout the world is based on previous experiences. So when you give a go at a problem that you know nothing about, you're using your prior experience. But that means you get to more deeply integrate it into your brain and how everything works. Whereas if you're just immediately presented with the information, let's say instruction from a teacher or let's say output from an AI, you don't have as many opportunities to link it back to prior experience, which solidifies that more in your overall understanding. And we actually already know what happens when you outsource cognitive skills to technology. There was a study done on GPS. Researchers at McGill University tested drivers and found that the more someone relied on GPS over their lifetime, the worse their spatial memory got. And a 3-year follow-up study showed the decline was steeper for heavier users. So they didn't start out as bad navigators. GPS made them bad navigators. The brain stopped building mental maps because the phone was building them instead. And so now ask yourself, if GPS can degrade spatial reasoning in 3 years, what is AI doing to your ability to think, debug, write, and reason after using it every single day? Now, again, I want to push back against anyone thinking this new world of moving fast and generating 10x code and getting instant answers is the best version of how we work. I'm not arguing that everything needs to be a slog and you need to just stop using AI altogether. My main argument is that AI's ability to remove every single point of friction steals every opportunity from you for growth. Now, how can we fix this? Well, I think one of the obvious answers is to stop being so dependent on AI. Wrestle with problems. Try doing it the old way. Disable instant answers for search. And that will essentially force you into the old way of having to read the results and pick which ones you want to click on, and then from there come to your own conclusions and really just spend that time solving your problems. And obviously, some of you have to work. You have a job. So you may say, well, I'm forced to work quickly now that we have AI. But in an ideal world, you can talk to your managers. You can talk to anybody at your company that cares and let them know, hey, I feel like my skills are degrading. I actually want some time to work on me. And so maybe you have 2 days a week where you say, this is a no AI day. Maybe you can make it a thing at your office or at your work, where you essentially say, we're going to struggle all day today, but then tomorrow we will use AI and it'll solve all the problems that we couldn't figure out today. And another thing you can do is put your AI in tutor mode, and that is have it give hints and ask Socratic questions instead of giving direct answers. I'll link some skills and prompts in the description that'll get you started with that. But evidence from the study I talked about at the beginning of the video showed that AI tutor mode improved practice scores by 127% compared to students using no AI at all. So ultimately, AI was not the problem. Using it as a replacement for your own thinking was the problem. And so I'm not saying never use AI. What I'm saying is if you've used it before you've even tried to think, you're paying that price that you can't see. And AI is stealing those opportunities from you. And so really my call to action is sit with problems. Don't just immediately reach for AI. Don't let AI steal from you. Now, I'm also going to leave you with a challenge. So this week, I want you to just pick one hard problem in your work or at school, whether it's a bug, whether it's writing something or summarizing things or sending an email or researching a question, and try and solve it without AI. Sit with that discomfort because struggling is the mechanism for learning. And also use those skills because the skills you don't exercise are the skills that you lose because it steals from you one small opportunity at a time. It steals an opportunity to think, an opportunity to read, an opportunity to form your own conclusions, an opportunity to tolerate uncertainty, and an opportunity to become more determined. All right, I'm done with this rant. I'm tripping over my words. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this content, definitely subscribe. Check out all the other stuff we got going on here on the Syntax channel. It's not just me ranting all the time, but I'll catch you in the next one.